Hey friends, Paul Vaillancourt here, back with episode 2 of Yes and Then What. If you want to check out the first episode with Kristen Nanos, ding ding, it's right there, and you can check that out. Today's episode features Elyssa Phillips, who is the artistic director of the Pack Theater, a comedy powerhouse here in LA. The theater and Elyssa, both comedy powerhouses. And I wanted to speak with her because she's the director of the artistic director of the Pack Theater, and I think they're doing so much interesting evolving work over there. And I really wanted to talk to her about what's up with the theater and what are they doing and sort of why and all this kind of stuff. And I think she's really interesting and really insightful about that. And also I wanted to know a little bit more about her, like where she came from to be this artistic director of the theater. And it was a really interesting sort of wide-ranging conversation. We talk about the past of improv, the future of improv, and a little bit about the present situation of improv. So it sort of spans everything, the past, present, and future. So I think that's all I need to say. If you want to know more about Elyssa, you can check out all her links down below, as well as links to checking out what the Pack is doing now during the quarantine. I think that's a really fun thing to check out as well. That's also down below. But right now, without any further ado, please sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Elyssa Phillips. And then we're recording. Great. Can you just introduce yourself to the folks at home?
Hi, my name is Elyssa Phillips. I'm the artistic director over at the Pack Theater in Hollywood.
Fantastic. And how long have you been doing that?
I'm the first artistic director. The theater's never had an artistic director before. This past January will be me going into my second year officially as the artistic director. I've sort of been helping run it for like 3 or 4 years now.
Sure. So like many improv theaters, it's sort of like a tribal sort of thing where people they get drawn in and suddenly you're doing more and then you're more. And then finally, I'm so glad that some people like yourself get recognized for that and get sort of like the sort of, the sort of the power that goes along with the responsibility. Like you become responsible for stuff, but now you have like an official title and that holds some sway in the equation of it all, I imagine.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that part's fun, I guess. It's fun to say that I'm the first artistic director of the Pack. It's what I was basically doing, plus a lot more. But I love it. I love it so much.
Great. I want to sort of stop there for a second. I want to sort of rewind and sort of tell me what has been your journey with improv. Like at one point you were at UCB. Is that true?
Yeah, I started at UCB in New York.
Oh, okay.
I guess even before that, before I got into UCB, I went to college for theater in Philly. And in Philly, I started getting involved a little bit with comedy sports. So short form is probably like my intro into improv. And then got formally trained and started performing main stage at UCB New York, moved out to LA, started at UCB LA. And then someone recommended, is before we were called the Pack, we were actually still called Miles Stroth Workshop back then. Someone recommended MSW to me. I took a sketch class I took a sketch class with Eric Moneypenny, and I took 2Prov with my friend Jared, taught by Miles Stroth, and I was like, this is where I belong.
Right on. That's excellent. Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of times it's like you sort of hear that sound and it's like, oh yeah, and then you hear someone who speaks directly to you and it's like, oh, that's it. It's like it sort of all comes into focus. You're like, this is the place that I'm meant to be.
Yeah, for what I was looking for out of improv, for where I was and for where I knew I wanted to go, Miles Stroth Workshop made sense for me.
Great. That's a really interesting statement. So what you were looking for in improv. So let's just, if we can, just drill down on that for a second. So if you can you sort of articulate what that was? What were you looking for from improv? Because having come from UCB, I imagine you had a pretty comprehensive education at UCB and a very clear point of view coming from UCB. But what was it that you were looking for that the MSW really hit you with?
I wanted to be a little bit more challenged, and I wanted to feel encouraged to take a little bit more risks and chances with my improv, in my moves, in my game moves, in all of my choices. I feel like at UCB, and I love UCB so much. I credit it to what started me in improv and sketch. And my knowledge of game was so on point, and I'm such a person that lives in structure. I'm so type A. I'm a quintessential New York Jew. Like, I live in structure. And so for me, UCB was great, and I needed a way. Can I curse?
Yes, please.
So I needed a way to fuck with that.
Yes.
I wanted to feel like I can go to a place that would push me to push my boundaries, and that's what I was looking for, and that's what I felt the first class with Miles Stroff.
For sure. And knowing Miles for quite a few years now, I definitely see that's his style of play and that's his point of view. So that's not super surprising in the long run.
Yeah.
And then so then you started at the PAC, but besides being the artistic director of the PAC, which is no doubt a full-time job in and of itself, what else do you do? What do you do when you? I'll say this: what else do you do when you're not doing that? So, like, in the other 1 hour of the day.
Yeah, well, I have to have a job that makes money, so I wait tables.
Yep.
And
You're also
then
an actress.
I'm an actor and a comedy writer. So yeah, I kind of, yeah.
Fantastic.
And I go to the gym. That's it.
That's it. That's a full life. It's
Gym,
full
comedy, wait tables, done.
That's it. And then returning literally the hundreds of emails that you get as artistic director of the PAC.
I try my hardest.
You do a great job. Whenever I email you, I'm just like, oh my gosh, do I really, it definitely gives me pause before I press send. I'm like, do I really need to?
I feel bad because so many people feel that way. And I'm like, you're more than welcome to email me. It's just, if I don't get, I'm up to 413. I go as fast as I can.
For sure. For sure. But you know what? I don't think that hesitation is necessarily bad. Having been done a version of your job at IO, like, it's okay. People can take a beat before they send you fire off an email about X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, there are sometimes I read emails and I'm just like, you're going to figure this out on your own and you don't need me. And it's tricky because before I was artistic director, I was just a student at MSW and a performer at MSW. So I'm everyone's peer and everyone's friend. And then this happened. So like we have this like rule. We have like, whenever we put new sketch teams together, we have the all sketch meeting. If we put new improv teams together, we have the all improv meeting. Everyone comes to the theater. It's like a shit ton of people. And the very first thing I say is, don't text me. Just don't text me. Everyone has my phone number because everyone's my friend. So the line gets blurred. It's really tricky. And I am 120% partly at fault for that. But it's hard because people feel like they can come and talk to me because I'm their friend. But I always tell them, I'm like, look, if you're going to text me and say, hey, how are you? Want to get a drink? Great, do that. But do not text me about something PAC related.
For sure. I think that's really definitely one of the hardest balancing acts. And again, I empathize, having been sort of in your shoes at some point, that's tough because you're making friends and you're sort of hanging out with these people, and then like on the side, suddenly there's like this business deal, and you're like, hold on, what's going on? We're just hanging out for a second. So would you consider that as your biggest sort of adjustment to be made, moving from sort of like the peer advisor sort of person into this formal role? Is that sort of trying to set those boundaries? Was that the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
In fact, at the last all sketch meeting, the very first thing I said was, so I have to set some boundaries. And like, the people that were there that have known me for a long time, they all like stood up and applauded, and I started crying because it's very emotional, because I don't want to have to set those kind of boundaries, and I want people to feel like they can come and reach out to me and talk to me. But we just have to, and I still don't really entirely know what the line is and where it gets blurred, because you know what I mean? We're all around each other all the time. So inevitably things are going to come up with other people at the theater. And it's like, do I talk to Elyssa? Because she's my friend. That's my girl.
Right.
But also, and sometimes people come to me and I say, like, are you coming to me as Elyssa, your friend? Or are you coming to me as Elyssa, your AD? Because I'm going to have two different answers.
For sure. And I think that's really important too, right? Because you're trying to sort of keep those friendships alive, but in their place. And if someone's just going to vent to you, that's different than lodging a formal complaint or requesting you do something. I don't envy you that balancing act, for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me, sir, if someone comes to you and they say, hey, look, the PAC Theater, I've been to UCB and the Groundlings, the PAC, why should I come to the PAC Theater? What's the PAC Theater about?
Yeah, it's kind of what I said before. For me, the Pack Theater is a place where you go when uh, you want to take risks and chances with your comedy.
Hmm.
You want to have freedom to fail. I feel like being in comedy, part of our job, part of what we're responsible for is pushing the boundaries. That's what people in middle America look to SNL for answers. Like they just do. You can
Sure.
say what you want about SNL, but it is one of the longest running shows on television. It is very successful. And people in middle America, that's your audience, is middle America. So
Interesting.
that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's our job to push boundaries and to take comedy to the next level. And I feel like that's what you learn at the Pack is what comedy is and how to find how you as an individual can fuck with it.
Great. And then, so I want to sort of focus on you for a moment on that idea. So you came in as an improv performer and you took the sketch class. How do you feel like, if there's a specific way, how do you feel like you've evolved as a player, writer, actor, whatever, from your time at the Pack?
I think especially with taking both the improv and the sketch programs at the theater, they both kind of bleed into each other, because when you're doing an improv show and you're on the back line and you're seeing these scenes happen, the sketch brain kind of kicks in and it's like, ooh, I know how I can help. I probably support more now than I initiate.
Oh, interesting.
Because of my sketch background, because I feel like I want to stand back and watch a scene and be like, ooh, I know how I can help this and move it to the next beat and heighten it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is because of the background I have in sketch. And then in sketch, for sure, my improv helps me when you're on stage and you're performing. People go up on their lines, or you're in the moment, something will inevitably go wrong, and the people who have that kind of that the only word I can think of is in Yiddish, and it's chutzpah, like the people who are confident and like know what they're doing because they have this background in improv.
Sure.
It's like, we got this, and I will get this scene right back on track.
Yeah, there's a certain fearlessness about it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And so, as you're saying that, I was thinking, like, when you're on the back line, you're watching scenes happen. Do you ever, are you ever like in a show, you're watching a scene happen, or you're in a scene, you're like, oh, that'd make a good sketch?
All the time.
So then, how do you I think this is a real common thing that happens all the time that I don't think anyone's ever really talked about, is how do you handle that? It's like, if you're watching a scene, that's two other people, or you're in a scene with someone else, and that's you partly, but then that's them too. Like, how do you handle that sort of, I mean, this is really dumb to talk about, but how do you handle the ownership of that idea and sort of make it into a sketch? Do you talk to them about it? Do you just sort of say, well, it's just out there in the ether that anyone could do it? Or,
I mean, if I'm in the scene, if you're in it, you're in it. And like, that would need to be a conversation. Like, I would never want to like plow my idea onto someone without talking to them first. Cause that's not fair. And that is 100% not taking care of them and like their thoughts and their feelings. But if I'm watching a scene and I get inspired to write a sketch, I'm going to write that sketch.
great. And so you don't think there's any, I mean, some people feel very like, sort of like about their ideas, and they sort of, but you just think it's out there and it's just an out there idea. It's like free.
I think it's out there. I think it's out there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. That's great. That's great. And so, one of the things I talked to you when we started sort of talking about doing this conversation was sort of what else about improv? Like, I know at the Pack, you guys really pushed, like you said, pushed the boundaries in a lot of different ways. You're doing so many shows, if social media is to be believed. I see you like in this show, in that show, a sketch show, improv show, bang, 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 bang. Like, what do you think is what's sort of the next, I'll sort of throw a big question. What do you think is like the next evolution of improv? Like, where do we go from here? Right now, we're sort of in the middle of this quarantine. I don't know when people are watching this. It's probably going to the broadcast hall of, whatever. But like, what do you think is like online is exploding now, and people are really exploring that venue or that medium, what do you think? Like, what would you like to see, and where do you think it's going?
I know what I would like to see, but I don't know if the world is ready for it.
Great, I'd love
Um,
to hear it.
I would love to see like a fully improvised, uh, like 3 camera situational sitcom comedy. I would love that, where the actors are given, um, maybe the situation, their entrances, their exits, certain staples, certain beats where they know it has to go, but how it gets there is completely improvised.
Sure.
But structured in a 3 camera, in front of a live studio audience sitcom comedy. I think that would be
Like
fast.
one take,
Yeah,
win, lose, or draw. That's how it goes.
I think it'd be great. I think I don't think it would. Oof, I don't know if it would work because so many times so many improv scenes fail, and to put that on TV is like crazy ballsy and very risky, and that's why I think it's kind of cool.
Right, for sure. I think that people have been circling this idea for years, but I think they have the same reservations that you do. I know that I've been in different versions of this idea.
Yeah, we all have.
Sure. And it's like, it's never totally 100% hit, because that's part of what improv is so exciting, like you said, because it could go south at any second. Even the best team can have an off night, so it's super, but I agree. That's a really great aspiration. I'm 100% with you. I would
It's
love to
just
see
hard.
that as well.
It's just hard because I don't think all audiences want to watch that kind of improv comedy. Like and again, I go back to Middle America because they really do dictate a lot. And that's something I've had to learn in comedy because I'm from New York and then I lived in LA, so I'm used to big cities. But when a lot of people, well, first of all, when a lot of people hear the word comedy, they just think stand up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a hurdle to get over as it is.
Tell me about it.
But when they hear comedy, if they're going to hear improv comedy, they're going to think, whose line is it anyway? Like
sure.
they're just going to think short form. So long form to begin with, I think, is sort of something that needs to be introduced to general audiences, let alone then taking long form and fucking with it.
Yeah, for sure. So you feel like it's an education process a little bit, and we're sort of in maybe the first or second step, getting people to know what improv is versus stand up, and what, okay, it's short form improv, you're getting that, then you need to sort of build to that next step. It's sort of, people aren't ready yet, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if they're ready yet. I don't know if they want to be ready, but I would like them to be ready. I just think we make them ready.
Sure. Good call. Let's do that. Let's do that.
On them.
That's great. And so, and do you think that's where it's heading, or do you think that's the trajectory it's on?
I don't. I just don't know if people are on board for something like that. It's also weird because you're asking me during quarantine. So it's like, where I see improv going right now is I actually think that what's going on right now with everything being put online, everything digital, I think that is what's going to surge for a little bit, even after all this is over.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are starting to figure out how to do comedy online. I think at first people are not happy about it. Some people are maybe forced to do it, but as they're doing it and they get more comfortable with it, you find things that could work, and you find new forms. And I think that could be a lot of fun for a lot of people.
For sure. I think for me, what I think is so hard about it is like, it's like 2 steps away from what I'm comfortable with. Like, I'm comfortable being in a live thing, watching a group of people together, but now it's like, I'm not there and they're not there.
Yeah.
Sort of, so it's like hard for me as like a guy who didn't necessarily grow up with the internet to sort of like do that. But I feel like there's some digitally more native people, like younger people than myself, who are more native to that. They're like, yeah, of course, obviously, that just makes tons of sense to them.
Yeah, I think having no audience is, for me, the hardest part of doing anything, any kind of comedy online, is not having that relationship with your audience, that, that thing you feel between them is so hard.
And have you been doing any online shows?
Yeah, a bunch. I've done some character shows and some sketch shows, a little bit of improv. The only thing I haven't done online so far, in this world that we're living in, is stand-up. But yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Which I may. The idea of doing stand-up not in front of a live audience, to me, is like, why am I mean, that's so much of like how I figure out my set and my material, and
right.
like,
And even SNL, you talked about SNL before, when they did their online show, Michael Che invited people to be there to give them some sort of feedback, some timing, give and take sort of feeling.
That's the other thing, is I know some people are experimenting with inviting other audience members into their Zoom so they can hear laughter, but it's delayed and it's not like, it's not the same. I'd rather so I haven't figured out, for me, I haven't figured out what to do with that, let alone what to do for the theater.
So where do you, I'm super interested in, you're doing so many shows, and I feel like you're such a multifaceted performer because all the shows look different to me. What's next for you? Like, what do you want to do next in your work? I mean, let's say quarantine or no quarantine, or sort of what's your end game? What's your long arc?
For improv or in general?
For you, in the big story of you.
The big story. I mean, the big story is I would love, my goal is to just be on sitcoms for the rest of my life. And I don't even want to be the lead. I just want to be like the quirky sidekick that like comes in like that. That's really what I want to do. I love 3-camera sitcoms. I love turnaround jokes and triplets. I love that kind of classic style that has gone away as of late because single cam comedies are so popular. But 3-camera will always resurge because that's multicam is timeless. So
right, for sure.
It's only a matter of time. And I actually think after quarantine, in my opinion, multicams are going to become really important and really necessary because of that style of comedy that multicam gives you. I think is going to be what like the world needs.
That's interesting. That's really, so it's a more sort of it's a more fun comedy, I think, in single, like you said.
You don't have to think as much as you do in single cam, and I think the world needs to have some comedy where they don't have to think so much.
Right, for sure. I think that's a really great. Well, folks, you heard it here first. The prediction. We will see. I'll revisit this in a year. I don't know.
Revisit it.
Whenever we get out of here, we'll see how it goes.
I know.
That's really interesting. We only have a few more minutes here, but I just want to sort of ask you, kind of as an artistic director, right? So if we can give something to the people who are watching and listening, as an artistic director, when you're looking at improvisers. Let's take it category by category. When you're looking at improvisers, new improvisers, people who want to be on teams, what is it that you're looking for? What qualities of their work or whatever do you see that say, oh, I want to put that person on a team. Oh, I think that person's really ready.
Yeah, I just want bold choices. Like there really is no right or wrong choice as long as you're making a choice. Like I just don't want to see someone being, timid or unsure, which is like such an easy thing to say, and like we all feel that way, and like I totally get it, but it's just confidence.
That's great. I think that's super concrete. So someone sort of auditioning at the PAC, they clearly it's a reflective of the personality of the theater. Bold choices is at the top of your list.
Yep.
And then when you're looking at sketch performers or sketch writers, what are you looking for in that? What appeals to you? Boldness as well?
Choices. Yeah. Clear choices. Yeah. Because even if something doesn't work and it ends up not being funny, if you have like that level of commitment to it, that to me says so much. I think that's just as important as if what you're doing is funny. Obviously, I want you to be funny, but like, please be funny. But also, if you're auditioning for a team at the theater, you're most likely going to be funny because you went through the program. So, right.
Oh, great. Excellent. And so before we sort of end here, let's sort of go all the way back. Do you remember the very first improv show that you saw?
Oh, wow. The very first improv show that I saw, I don't remember the show. I remember the experience, which is a weird thing to say. My brother did UCB when UCB first started. My brother is not an actor, but he did this thing called improv comedy because he heard about it and he thought it'd be fun. And it was before UCB was like anything. And I don't even remember the space, but I remember it being like garbage, underground. Like it was.
Oh, right. The space. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Not the show.
I thought you meant the show. I was like, wow, don't hold back.
No, but I just remember like walking into whatever it was and being like, this is where I die. So this is where I go to die. My brother told me I'm going to watch comedy. Pretty sure I'm not going to walk out of here alive. So I definitely remember that. God, I can't remember a first. I can think of so many improv shows. I used to go pretty frequently. Is it Wednesday nights was Lloyd night at UCB? I used to go watch. So I for whatever reason, I remember not being able to watch Herald night a lot, I think because of my work schedule, but I was able to go to Lloyd night, which is like the JV teams. And I mean, I can remember players on them. Like, I remember loving it.
That's fantastic. And sort of another thing I always think is interesting is, do you remember the very first show you did?
Yes.
How was that? What was that experience like? We have like 3 more minutes.
It was fun. I remember being pretty ballsy, getting up and like telling the monologue up top for suggestions. We were called, our name of our team was Pow ... or something. What a stupid name. But I just remember having a lot of fun. I remember we would practice all the time just to get that like group mind thing going. I don't know if the show was good, but I do remember having a lot of fun. I remember
even now, years later, even just the memory of it as you think of it, your big smile. It was like that. That's how people get hooked.
Level 1 shows are my favorite shows to watch. Always, because no one knows anything. Like, no one's been bogged down by structure or game or whatever. So it's like everyone's just having fun. And I love it. I love it.
On that, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Such a delight. Oh my gosh, I'm just watching the timer tick down. I'm like, no, I have so much more I want to talk about. It was so great to hear from you, and for people to be able to hear sort of from, they may not have contact with you, but they know that you're the artistic director of the PAC, and get to hear you and your journey and talking about sort of that official role, but then also your personal role as a really active performer. Still, that's one of the things I really admire about you is, even with all the work and all the responsibilities, you're still in there. You're still doing it and performing so much, and that's really thrilling and exciting. And it just shows the love that you have for it. And I think it really comes through in the work and how you interact with people. And when the times I've been at the PAC, I just see everyone just seems to really adore you. And congratulations on striking that really fantastic balance.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Thank you.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much. I will let you know when it goes up.
Please do.
All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye.
Bye.